If you're like me and grew up in the early 2000s, you most likely need no introduction to Regina Hall. From humble beginnings and relative obscurity to globally beloved star, Regina Hall defined the early 2000s as the iconic Brenda Meeks in the widely successful Scary Movie franchise.
Cindy! The TV's leaking!
It's been over 15 years since Regina last played Brenda in any Scary Movie franchise, and it feels like this role is somehow inescapable and indistinguishable from her on-screen and off-screen persona. Comedies, rom-coms, dramas, crime thrillers, and over a dozen TV series under her belt, and yet Regina Hall's entire career is consistently boiled down to a role from nearly 2 decades ago. Not to say that having a successful film role is bad, I'm sure Regina enjoys the fanfare and her permanent place in pop culture, but I do think it says something that you can spend nearly your entire career displaying growth and versatility in an array of genres within your craft and go virtually unrecognized for it, or be simply dismissed as the funny girl from that one movie franchise. Regina Hall was 29 years old when she played Brenda in Scary Movie, and Regina Hall will be 54 in December of 2024. It's clear that Regina is more than willing to take risks with new roles and put herself out of her comfort zone, and we know how much Hollywood loves to reward women who take bold, risky choices as long as they pay off in some form. Regina's taking many chances, and while they're delivering on screen, the acknowledgement of Regina's skill is going unrecognized. I want to pose a few hypothetical but very realistic and fair questions that may help remedy some of the frustration I feel toward the casual dismissal of Regina Hall as an actress. What are the possible underlying reasons behind why Regina Hall always seems to be getting the short end of the stick from Hollywood? How does Hollywood's treatment of women of color in general inform our understanding of Regina Hall and her career? And when, if ever, will Regina Hall be recognized for her contributions to the film and television industries respectively? Born on December 12, 1970 in Washington, D.C., to Odie Hall, an electrician, and Ruby Hall, a teacher, Regina Hall is from the same D.C. suburb as Martin Lawrence, Dave Chappelle, and Sandra Bullock. She went to high school in D.C. and then later enrolled at Fordham University, studying English and graduating in 1992. That same year, Regina would have her first TV appearance on the ABC daytime soap opera, Loving. She then followed that up with a master's degree in journalism from NYU in 1997, although, unfortunately just after enrollment, Regina's father, Odie Hall, would pass away of a stroke. Devastated, but determined, Regina did as she always has and persisted through grad school, knowing her father would want her to graduate. After graduating, Regina would bounce around jobs between being a dental assistant, a job that she hated, and a waitress at a Twin Peaks themed restaurant, a job that she loved. In between odd jobs, Regina would have her first spot in a TV commercial in addition to her first major television role. Regina would have a recurring role as Coretta Lip on the Fox legal comedy drama series Ally McBeal, starting in 1997, running until 2002. This was also in addition to guest appearances on the Fox cop drama New York Undercover. In 1999, Regina Hall made her film debut in the hit comedy The Best Man. While not the most fleshed out character in The Best Man, playing a stripper named Candy, Regina made the most out of her screen time. The Best Man also introduced Regina Hall to fellow actress Sanaa Lathan, whom she would co-star with a year later in her second film, Love and Basketball. Although, just 3 months after Love and Basketball's release in April of 2000, Regina Hall would cement her status as a fixture of one of the biggest comedy franchises in film history, after originating the iconic role of Brenda Meeks in the Scary Movie franchise. Written and directed by the Wayans brothers, Scary Movie broke new ground for the comedy genre after building off of the success of the 90s slasher horror phenomenon by spoofing films like Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer. Made on a $19 million budget, Scary Movie grossed nearly $300 million at the box office, starting what would inevitably become a long line of spin-offs and sequels that all attempted to unsuccessfully to capture the magic of the original installment, as many franchises sadly fall victim to. But it can't be understated. The Scary Movie franchise would ultimately gross nearly $1 billion across 5 movies cumulatively. In 2002, Regina would star in the American crime drama Paid in Full, as well as a supporting role in 2003 in the hit comedy Malibu's Most Wanted. Although unfortunately, while filming for the Scary Movie franchise in 2004, Regina Hall's mother, Ruby, was diagnosed with scleroderma, a rare autoimmune disease that affects the skin, muscles, and organs. Although admittedly not familiar with the disease at first, Regina has since dedicated her life outside of acting to raising awareness and money for research for scleroderma. Ultimately, Regina starred in 4 out of 5 of the Scary Movie films, retiring the character of Brenda Meeks in 2006. Yet, somehow, it feels like this one character, largely written based off of negative stereotypes about women of color, has come to define Regina Hall's career to an extent that feels unjustifiably insurmountable. Even after dozens of films and decades of roles, Regina still gets asked about playing Brenda Meeks in interviews, as if she hasn't done anything else since the year 2000.
But we're gonna keep on throwing it back. We're gonna throw it back 18 years ago to Scary Movie.
Oh, gosh.
And one of your characters.
It always feels out of place considering most of the time that she's doing these TV interviews to promote other projects she's working on. It's one thing to have a memorable character and people celebrate that with you. It's another thing to have that character outlive every other project you've made to a point where that's the only interesting thing people want to talk to you about. All on a very shallow level for laughs and applause. And that's it. That's the depth. Anyways, I digress. After playing Brenda for the 3rd and 4th installments of the Scary Movie franchise in 2006, Hall would then go on to star in films like Law Abiding Citizen in 2009 and TV shows like Law & Order LA in 2010. Hall then went on to star in the hit 2012 rom-com Think Like a Man, based on the Steve Harvey book Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man. In 2013, Hall then reprised her role as Candy in The Best Man Holiday. In 2014, Hall would star in 2 films. The first was the hit romantic comedy with Kevin Hart titled About Last Night, and the second film was the sequel to Think Like a Man, Think Like a Man 2. In 2015, Regina starred in the indie comedy People, Places, Things, garnering generally favorable reviews from critics. In 2017, Regina Hall would star in the widely successful comedy Girls Trip alongside Tiffany Haddish and Queen Latifah. While many award shows singled out and formally recognized her co-star Tiffany Haddish's performance, many critics also singled out Hall's performance as one of the best of the film too. In 2018, Hall would yet again star in 2 more films, The Hate U Give and Support the Girls. Regina's performance in The Hate U Give was well received by critics, but it was her performance in Support the Girls that signified a possible shift in Regina's career when it came to mainstream awards recognition. Support the Girls premiered at the South by Southwest Film Festival in March of 2018, garnering unanimous critical acclaim for Regina's performance as Lisa Conroy, a sports bar manager of a restaurant, who tries to support her female employees, from the often perverted and rude customers at the bar to their abusive spouses at home. Would Support the Girls be the film to finally afford Regina Hall industry love? After all, Regina's performance in Support the Girls went against type. The comedy actress turning to drama and being rewarded is a narrative we see a lot in Hollywood. First came many of the critic circles, where Regina was tying with eventual Oscar winner Olivia Colman for The Favorite and eventual Oscar nominee Melissa McCarthy for Can You Ever Forgive Me at the Vancouver Film Critics Circle Awards. Regina was then nominated for a National Society of Film Critics Circle Award, but would lose to Olivia Colman. Regina was also nominated for a Film Independent Spirit Award, losing to another eventual Oscar nominee Glenn Close for The Wife. Then came the Gotham Awards, where Regina would lose to Toni Collette in Hereditary. In November of 2018, Regina would make history at the New York Film Critics Circle Awards after becoming the first Black actress to win Best Leading Actress. Regina, in many ways, was being recognized for her work. Her name was being written down on ballots, being nominated and losing against eventual Oscar nominees like Melissa McCarthy and Glenn Close, and then the eventual Oscar winner, Olivia Colman. But when the Oscar nominations that year came out, Regina's name was nowhere to be found. And yes, I can already hear the comment section screaming that Support the Girls was a small, indie film that was shot on a next to nothing budget from a relatively unknown studio with minimal distribution, and thus it would never have gotten Regina an Oscar nomination. Because how could it? And to that I say, true, you're probably right, but Glenn Close was nominated for The Wife the same exact year for a film that was also shot on a shoestring budget, with minimal marketing and a limited release. Melissa McCarthy had the same exact thing that same year with Can You Ever Forgive Me? In 2023, Andrea Riseborough shocked everyone on Oscar nominations morning when she received a nomination for Best Actress for the film To Leslie, despite most of the public and even the greater film community at large having never heard of the film. But thanks to a huge wave of white celebrities posting last-minute for your consideration ads all across every social media platform, Andrea Riseborough secured a nomination for an unknown film, ultimately proving just how pivotal a last-minute awards campaign push can impact your likelihood of a nomination. So yes, Regina had a very slim chance of a nomination. But indie film acting nominations happen. The difference is for who. And while discussing the 2018 to 2019 award season in particular, I do think this brings up an interesting career parallel between Regina Hall and Melissa McCarthy specifically. Comparing their biggest and most iconic roles in comedy films, Brenda from Scary Movie for Regina and Megan from Bridesmaids for Melissa, it's interesting to see the way that Hollywood treated both of these roles and women. Scary Movie grossed $278 million, while Bridesmaids grossed $288 million at the box office respectively, so those are similar. Scary Movie has an IMDb score of 6.3 out of 10, while Bridesmaids has a 6.8 out of 10, so those are similar. Both roles are considered the standout performances of their respective films. Both roles have some, if not the most memorable scenes of their films, and both performances require acute comedic timing, nuanced character traits, and often similar deadpan humor. Although, a key difference being Melissa's role is much more physical, whereas the task for Regina was taking a script that may not read well on paper and spinning comedy gold. However, their roles were not received the same. Melissa would eventually receive an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actress for Bridesmaids, a rare acting nomination for a comedy film, something that only ever seems to happen for white actresses when it comes to the Academy Awards. And Regina would permanently get typecast for several years after Scary Movie. Success for an actor can be a bit of a blessing and a curse when the role you're most famous for is one that supersedes your entire personality. We don't call Melissa McCarthy Megan from Bridesmaids, or call Sandra Bullock Gracie from Miss Congeniality, or Reese Witherspoon Elle Woods from Legally Blonde. There's an allowance in Hollywood for white actresses to be more than one thing, or to exist in multiple genres of film, that is simply not afforded to black actresses. And it can't go without mentioning that Hollywood has struggled for decades to accurately depict people of color without relying on classic tropes and negative stereotypes as a means of storytelling. Even companies like Disney have a shockingly long, but admittedly hidden history of racist films that rely exclusively on negative stereotypes of people of color. And these are films from a couple of decades ago, not very far off from when Regina Hall herself was born. From the continued push of films about slavery and civil rights, to the total disregard for wide distribution of films about ordinary people of color doing ordinary things, working ordinary jobs, without having to rely on adverse tropes as if it's the only means of storytelling. And while the Oscars So White movement has brought attention to the lack of recognition for people of color at the Oscars, we're only just beginning to see a shift in the roles being offered to people of color in Hollywood as a whole. The Oscars So White movement highlights a symptom of a much, much larger problem. Even within a lot of the Oscar nominations, the performances in question take place in the distant past, usually the 50s or 60s, where the women in question are either maids, slaves, sex-crazed, or impoverished and living on some form of government assistance. In 1973, Diana Ross was nominated for Best Actress for Lady Sings the Blues for depicting the famous jazz singer Billie Holiday. And in 2021, Andra Day was also nominated for Best Actress for The United States vs. Billie Holiday. In the span of nearly 50 years, we have had more than enough black female icons to depict on film, and yet we have the same movies and the same stories being retold over and over again. This is all merely a glimpse into the overarching plague in Hollywood, where roles for actors are scarce already, roles for people of color are even fewer, and roles for people of color that receive mainstream recognition is an even smaller number. Even if Regina did get an Oscar nomination for Support the Girls, her odds of winning would be slim. In the nearly 100 years of the Academy Awards, only 2 women of color have ever won Best Actress at the Oscars. And despite not receiving any mainstream recognition for her most lauded role to date, Regina continued to flourish with acting, choosing more risky, reinventive roles. In 2019, Regina Hall would star alongside Don Cheadle in the Showtime series Black Monday, where she plays Dawn Darcy, the only woman working in a trading firm during the Black Monday stock market crash in October of 1987. Ironically, on the show, Regina's character Dawn is constantly fighting for the recognition and respect that her male counterparts seem to just naturally get. Like, wow, are imitating life, huh? Regina was praised for her performance in Black Monday, which ran for 3 seasons. However, despite the buzz around the show and the positive words from critics, ultimately, Regina would once again go virtually unrecognized by any awards body. Meanwhile, Regina's co-star Don Cheadle was recognized with 2 separate Emmy nominations and a Golden Globe nomination for Black Monday. Following the success of Black Monday, Regina then starred in the Hulu series 9 Perfect Strangers in 2021, alongside Nicole Kidman and, ironically, Melissa McCarthy. Despite the show receiving positive reviews from critics and audiences, the show underperformed considering its high-budget cast and clear marketing push from Hulu. Most recently, Regina starred in her revived role as Candace in the Peacock series The Best Man, The Final Chapters in 2022. Which brings us to present day. Currently, Regina Hall has 3 projects in the works, with her most prominent being reprising her role in Girls Trip 2 and a supporting role in an untitled Paul Thomas Anderson project with Leonardo DiCaprio and Tiana Taylor. While Girls Trip 2 will likely repeat a similar success to the first film, it doesn't seem as though Girls Trip 2 is going to be the vehicle that finally gives Regina Hall the praise that has been eluding her entire career. And we don't know enough about the Paul Thomas Anderson film to know how much of it Regina is even in. So where does this leave us? We have a talented actress with a proven box office history, a willingness to diversify her filmography and break her usual character type, nearly 3 decades in Hollywood, and the general love of critics and audiences. But Hollywood doesn't seem to want to give her flowers, or fully allow her to flex her acting potential. Purely my own speculation here, but perhaps it's because she's a certified hit for the comedy and rom-com genres, respectively, and so maybe studio execs don't want to greenlight higher budget projects in other genres with Regina as the lead out of fear that if she fails, she may fail to bring in money upon her return to comedy. There's really no way to tell. The reality is that Regina Hall is outright undervalued in Hollywood, not because she is going unnoticed by audiences, but because she is constantly being viewed through a singular lens, diminished to a lone image meant to inhibit and hinder rather than engage and uplift. While the white rom-com counterparts in similar age groups as Regina Hall have enjoyed prominent success post-major comedy hits like Sandra Bullock, Melissa McCarthy, Julia Roberts, and Cameron Diaz, Regina Hall still has to fight the notion that she is more than just Brenda from Scary Movie. Sandra Bullock is even from the same DC suburb as Regina. Sandra's film career also took off with comedies just as Regina's did, and yet, in 2010, Sandra Bullock infamously won Best Actress at the Oscars for The Blind Side, a notoriously whitewashed movie that disregards its male black protagonist for the white family's perspective of raising him, but through a very unrealistic, oversimplistic lens. Think about that. Similar careers, they've played similar character types, both have broken their usual genre for drama, and yet only the white woman was rewarded for it. And for a very whitewashed film. Is that a coincidence? I want to remain hopeful about Regina Hall's career, and I want to continue to hold out hope that I someday get to say Regina Hall, Oscar nominee, or Regina Hall, Golden Globe winner, or Regina Hall, Emmy winner, something, anything. I know awards don't mean anything, but that doesn't mean I don't want to see talented people be recognized for hard work. We have to be hopeful and hope for surprises. We've been surprised before. A few years after releasing her 4th studio album, Queen Latifah would break new ground when she was cast in the 2001 musical Chicago as matron Mama Morton. She would eventually go on to become the first female rapper to receive an acting Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actress in 2002. In 2017, Mary J. Blige became the first black woman to receive multiple Oscar nominations in a single year with the movie Mudbound. Even as recent as 2023, Angela Bassett became the first actress to be nominated for an Academy Award for a comic book film. And despite all of these women making history, every one of them lost. But they at least received some recognition. It is an honor just to be nominated. But what if you aren't even being cast or considered for those roles? You shouldn't need a perfect storm of circumstances just to be valued or just to be cast. As pessimistic as the stats are, as stacked as the odds always seem, I'm weirdly hopeful. While some people get to enjoy the luxury of having a near guaranteed nomination every year by what feels like routine, even as some people receive nominations through what feels like a back door, sometimes, just sometimes, miracles do happen. So here's to Regina Hall and her future successes. And because of women like her, Hollywood is slowly becoming a place where women of color won't need a miracle to receive recognition.